Yeah.
And because he doesn't want to bring both Kyogre and Groudon to this, he's gone for Groudon's younger brother, slightly smaller, slightly weaker brother in Torkoal, and just not being able to, you know, do as much. But is that weather control going to be as important? That said, we're not going to be seeing it in the lead. Definitely weather's something that's being saved. But once again, you know, Joe does have access to his weather, and Victor may have to be a little bit cautious if he wants to play with his.
I kind of feel like, though, if you're Victor, maybe you just say, well, maybe you're going to bring your Groudon. So I'll just bring my Venusaur. I don't even have to bring the Torkoal. Just go ahead and leave that at home. But taking a look at the leads right now, Joe did bring out the Yveltal and the Regieleki, and Victor has the Zacian and the Tornadus. So, interesting. Some speed control may be available for this first turn.
I mean, you need something to try and outrun this Regieleki, right? There's no way. After what we saw Regieleki get up to in the last game, I think there's a strong lesson there that you need to be able to say, well, don't just let the Regieleki go absolutely nuts. And then if you're in Victor's shoes, well, okay, for a few turns you can try and keep up with it, but you do have to Tailwind, and that is still, you know, a limited time option. But a very safe turn from Joe, switching out into that Incineroar, letting the Tailwind just go up for free as the Regieleki protects. And yeah, this is a nice little turn of setup. He's called the slot that he wants, so he is going to land the damage here into that Incineroar. Not the biggest amount, but it's better than nothing.
It is better than nothing. Zacian is at neutral because of the Intimidate that just came through from Joe's Incineroar. But I actually like this setup a lot because Joe now has access to Fake Out, and so that could be a very useful tool to have in this matchup. Tornadus, though, not really sure what the moveset looks like on this Pokemon beyond the fact that it does have access to Prankster Tailwind. But Incineroar just taking a manual switch out in favor of the Yveltal to bring that back out onto the field.
Is there anything else to Tornadus' moveset outside of Prankster Tailwind? I thought it was just one move. I thought that's how people played it now. They just used it for speed control and went from there, but apparently I've been playing it all wrong. You should be picking other moves. Alas, Joe deciding to Dynamax the Regieleki. Very fine Dynamax choice. I've been swayed, maybe it's by Lou and her constant discussion of this Pokemon, but I've been swayed that this is the right way to play it and just go for it with one of the fastest things around.
Well, it's a double protect here from Victor. So Joe can go for a Max Lightning, and it will hit into the Tornadus through the protected. Holy moly, that is a lot of damage through that protect.
Yeah, that's a huge amount of damage going through a protect. I mean, that's going to knock out probably twice over, essentially, if that lands. And what's strange about this is Victor needs to go, right? He needs to go now because his Tailwind's ticking down. He just spends his turn being very, very safe. Maybe he's trying to scout out what's going on, but the problem is with that is you've now given over electric terrain, so that's even more damage coming through, and you've got to be hoping that you can answer this Regieleki while the Tailwind's up, or else it's going to just completely run away. As Tornadus reveals Heat Wave, not the most common move at all, and doesn't get much damage done with it, but does get a burn over on Yveltal. That said, the control of the terrain just means Regieleki just does what it needs to do.
Yeah, the electric terrain plus the transistor plus the same type attack bonus Max Lightnings are plenty to knock out most of the Zacian builds that are running around today and how they are trained. So that will be a one-hit knockout secured there for Joe. And now Victor down to his final two Pokemon in this game. What are they going to be?
He's going to have to reveal pretty much everything here, and I think Joe is just going to be able to decide if he needs to even show the last Pokemon. This is a tough combination, but I think there's actually some potential here, because if you don't deal with the Kyogre, it's just going to start water spouting, right? It's going to start catching you with water spout. This is going to be the last turn of the Tailwind as well, so this is the turn where you really got to go as the Kyogre, and you're able to start dealing damage that way. Well, the obvious answer when you see a Kyogre is switching your Groudon. That's fine. I totally understand and I respect that. but you've got to be a little bit more cautious about it now because the Venusaur's on the field. The Venusaur could just Dynamax, wait for that Groudon to come in, get the Chlorophyll, and just start going for it. So very interesting team selection from Victor, not just the six that he's brought to this tournament, but the way he's putting it together and building it. I think maybe there's better options for how to go through that. We'll discuss that between games, though. But, you know, a Dynamax right now, definitely something he needs to get back in while he's staring down the Dynamax Regieleki. And, yep, the Venusaur makes a whole lot of sense here, so it can maybe take one of these hits.
Yeah, the fact that it will be not super effective damage from the Regieleki will be able to tank some of that, but the Regieleki from Joe just gonna use a Max Guard and also a Protect coming through from the Yveltal. Really smart just to be able to stall out any remaining turns of Tailwind, and the Water Spout as well, just to make sure that you're not taking too much damage, start to stall out some of that weather. But the Max Quake goes right into that Max Guard.
Yeah, not the turn that Victor wanted. Essentially a big wasted turn of his Dynamax there, and Joe, most importantly, gets through to the end of the Tailwind. That's exactly where he needs to be, and now his Regieleki is still the fastest thing on the field, and if he can keep the board where he wants, he doesn't even have to give up the Sun over to this Venusaur right now. He can give that up at a later time, but if he does decide to bring in the Sun, he's just going to take the Kyogre out of the equation. The Kyogre's already, in my book, out of the equation. The Regieleki is going to be able to pick it off at any given time, assuming it can hit through a Protect, obviously. But, you know, it's just going to struggle, and maybe this turn's going to need to be big for Victor. He's going to need to land some sort of big attack into the Regieleki, so this Kyogre is going to get to play the game.
Yeah, well, a big reveal of the Cobra Berry on the Venusaur, but that Yveltal using Oblivion Wing into a Dynamax target is still going to be able to get a lot of its HP back, but a huge G-Max Vine Lash into the Regieleki, and this is exactly what Victor wanted to be able to stay into this game. That Protect onto the Kyogre did protect from a knockout from that Regieleki, and also setting up that G-Max Vine Lash damage. This Yveltal is now going to be on borrowed time with that burn on top of things.
Oh, definitely, and maybe there's a world where Victor can, if the Yveltal doesn't get an Oblivion Wing down, would get knocked out between turns. But I don't know how reliable that is. Of course, the Venusaur wants to be attacking. The Venusaur wants to be going for it and landing those extra bits of damage. And the Kyogre just knows at some point that there might just be a Groudon coming in. And as soon as that Groudon shows up, this Kyogre's time is done. Its goose is definitely cooked when the Sun gets set up. So it's all about, I think, if you're in Joe's shoes, dealing with that Venusaur right now, and the Yveltal's doing a great job of it. Now the Cobra Berry's gone, that Oblivion Wing's going to do even more. It's going to heal even more by doing more damage, and this is going to be an absolute nightmare to take down. So all eyes on Venusaur right now. That's probably the play, because Kyogre, I think, is going to struggle as soon as the Sun gets set up. If Joe starts going after the Kyogre, maybe he's left the Groudon at home. That said, here's the Incineroar. We're going to get the reveal of it there. Groudon coming in. So now the Kyogre is done. The Kyogre's not getting to play the game anymore. It doesn't have a way to reset the weather, but you need a reliable way to deal with this Venusaur, because it's just going to start taking advantage and making sure that it gets some really big damage down. And with the Venusaur going for it, I actually think this Yveltal's in a really good position.
Yeah, that switch into the Groudon was also fairly risky, because this Yveltal is now being outsped by that Venusaur. But some decent damage onto the Kyogre. Kyogre just going to go for an Origin Pulse into the Sun. It definitely has to at this point. Will be able to connect on both targets, and the Yveltal gets knocked out.
Yeah, that was a curious one. I think maybe trying to get some more damage down on the Venusaur would have been the play there. You're not worried about the Kyogre so much. You know, the Kyogre, yeah, it's going to Origin Pulse. It's annoying. But the Venusaur is the problem here. The Venusaur's the Pokemon with Chlorophyll active now, and, you know, maybe he's worried about the Kyogre because both his Pokemon are weak to Water-type attacks, but the Sun is helping you out. The Sun is defending you so much that you shouldn't be that worried about it. The other thing, though, is that switch does mean that Incineroar comes in at the end of Venusaur's Dynamax, meaning it is potential to fake it out. You know about some of the move choices on there. You've got a good idea of what they are, so certainly more than a few things to think about if you're in Joe's shoes, but this game has become a lot closer than I think it was meant to for either player. I think, Joe was in such a commanding position, but this unorthodox back pairing of Venusaur and Kyogre putting in a surprising amount of work in my book.
Especially with that max Quake, you know that Venusaur is going to have access to some type of ground type attack. The fake out though from the Incineroar at least going to stop this Venusaur for one turn, but Water Spout now coming out here from the Kyogre. It does get the KO on the Groudon, and that's where this match has turned very interesting.
Yeah, the Groudon not getting to land any damage is really problematic here. Incineroar as well is going to start taking big damage from the Vine Lash between turns, and all this Venusaur or Kyogre needs to do is land an attack. So maybe Joe was right to start targeting down that Kyogre. It's still doing a whole lot of damage, even with the Sun Up, even with its health reduced. It's still doing enough to start picking up knockouts, and Joe is going to have to go back to the drawing board on how to deal with that one, as Victor, after losing his front two very early, fires right back.
Looked a little bit unorthodox, but based on what Joe had in the back for that game number one, I very much like that Venusaur and Kyogre pairing. Either way, I feel like you get a little bit of something out of that pair. Either you get the speed boost from Chlorophyll being activated by the sun that Groudon on Joe's side will set when it comes in, or you have control of the weather with the Kyogre, and you're just able to deal impressive spread damage to whatever is on Joe's side.
I definitely feel as well that the Victor was a little bit wasteful in the early game. He set up a Tailwind, didn't really capitalize on it. Double protected in one of its turns, and then there's the pairing that you had next to the Tailwind Tornadus just wasn't particularly stunning. I don't think Zacian is the preferred partner for Tailwind play, because it's already very, very fast, right? Yes, it's nice that it now gets to outspeed the Zacian, but I wouldn't list it as a top Pokemon that I'd want in the Tailwind. But then after that, I mean, both the Tornadus and the Zacian got knocked out for, not much back in Victor's favor. But his back two was so impactful. The Kyogre and the Venusaur did all of the heavy lift in that game. And if he only needs two, what is scary looking at it from this side of things is, what if he cleans up that early game? What if that early game gets tidier? What does Joe do then?
Well, I think what's really interesting on top of that is I don't know how much I would actually call that Tailwind a waste. I think that actually put Joe in a very awkward position of having to figure out how he's going to deal with those threats, and also try to make sure that whatever is in the back, the powerhouses that are Kyogre and Venusaur, are not able to take control of that. So he did have to play a bit of a different game in order to work around that. But also, I think the Zacian, while it did end up going down to a one-hit knockout from that Regieleki, it still got some work done. Whether it was a Behemoth Blade, I think whatever amount of chip damage that got through from the Behemoth Blade and that Heat Wave coming through from the...
the Heat Wave burn is huge as well. That's a big deal. But it just felt very kind of non-traditional as far as Tailwinds go. And I'm not saying it was about Tailwind. It just, watching somebody double protecting one is like,
You could have found more from it.
That's what I'm basically saying. Like, you could get even more value out of it, and that is terrifying. If he's getting, Tailwind and a Switch, or just really getting all that he needs, that could be a big concern. So both the players are back in Team Select. Do you make any changes if you're either of these players? That's the big concern. Is there anything you drop? Does Joe, and this is a wild thought, does Joe have to play without the Groudon so he doesn't give over the Sun? Because he gave over the Sun to Victor, and Victor took advantage of that at the end.
I think that's a problem, though, because then your Kyogre still has, pretty free reign.
Yeah, it's a really tough choice, right? Because
it's hard.
You don't want to give him free Kyogre matchup, but you don't want to give him Venusaur matchup either. So you got to pick your poison on that one, really.
I like this switch up. I was thinking about the Porygon when I saw it on Team Preview, and so here it is. Joe going to lead this game number 2 with Incineroar and Porygon, and we've got Incineroar and Venusaur here for Victor.
definitely an adaptation that needed to be made. I don't mind the Porygon 2 at all if you've left, say, the Regieleki back. Then why not, right? Why not maybe try and play for the Trick Room? I don't think there's anything on Victor's side that he can use to immediately stop setting that up. And there's also just options, Porygon 2, that aren't so much the Trick Room. It does have such a fantastic move pool and could try and work through all of that. So we'll see exactly how that decides to play out. But nice change from Joe. Definitely changed up the game plan. And I think the Pokemon selection is going to give us an idea of what this Porygon 2 is going for.
I think Incineroar just going to switch right back out in favor of the Yveltal. The Venusaur going for Mr. Raw Sleep Powder right into that Porygon 2. So whatever it's selected to do for this turn will not notice. And just the double up as well with the taunt, just in case the Sleep Powder missed.
Victor absolutely despises Porygon 2. He doubles into it with a Sleep Powder taunt. That is the double shutdown, essentially, on the Porygon 2, and that could throw Joe's strategy really out of whack here. If he was trying to set up with the Porygon 2, he's going to have to wait a little while to do it. You know, the taunt and the sleep could be ending around the same time, so it could be an explosive turn. And while he's waiting for that to pass and that to transpire, he needs to start finding knockouts with this Yveltal, and this Dynamax is probably the way to go about it. I really like that change, and I like that you know, he's going to be able to build up some boosts for himself and try and cause some problems there. Maybe now the Porygon 2 is asleep, just pivoting over to the Max Airstream and just trying to get the speed advantage or control at least that way.
Well, Victor's not going to go down without a fight. Going to match the Dynamax from that Yveltal on Joe's side of the field with a Gigantamax of his own in that Venusaur. This is really good. You get an increased health pool. We did see the reveal of that Koba Berry, so if a Max Airstream is heading its way, Venusaur should be able to survive that and fire back with something else. But it's a Max Darkness going into the Venusaur. It's going to do about half. What a knockout.
I like Max Darkness here a lot. I like that you get it in, you get the special defense to fall, so you can guarantee a knockout in the following turn. And of course, you do a little bit more damage. You know, the Koba Berry was revealed. That's just something that you've got to play around. But if you get the special defense down, maybe you can soften it up. Venusaur is going to do all its work to get that special defense back, but you're just keeping it at neutral. And okay, in that time, why not take advantage of Dark Aura, right? You know that the Koba Berry is going to limit your damage from Max Airstream. That's very frustrating. But at that point, just say, okay, well, I'll just use Dark Aura and do more damage anyway. Haha. Like, it just works out that way. And I think that's a really nice adaptation. It's so tempting when you see the super effective move option to go, yep, that's the one. And I like when you see the restraint and control of players to be like, hold up. There's a better long-term plan.
Yes, and that was definitely going for that Max Darkness. Zacian now entering into the second game, so this is the third Pokemon reveal from Victor. But it was a big parting shot, though. You know, Yveltal is in this position where it is Dynamax, but let's see a withdrawal of that Porygon 2 for the Incineroar. So a nice manual switch to be able to get that Zacian's attack back down to neutral.
Yep. But the Zacian's staring down a Dynamax Pokemon, and we know that it likes that. Ooh.
And the Sacred Sword, though, that's still going to be pretty big. You know, regardless of whether it was the Porygon 2, of course, that was what it was kind of intended for. That Incineroar is a really nice catch as well.
Does Venusaur take this? Yes.
Venusaur definitely takes this with that Koba Berry to be able to weaken that super effective damage, but now this is where the Yveltal gets scary. It was already pretty scary because it's the way that it's trained is this Yveltal is quite fast.
It's very fast, and it's getting even faster. This Incineroar not being welcomed to the field, I think it's fair to say. Just getting absolutely shredded on the way in. Sacred Sword and G-Max Vine Lash. That is a rude welcome. I'm going to be honest. That is frightfully rude. But this Yveltal, you know, is the focal point for Joe's team right now. He needs to keep it going.
Well, Porygon 2 now coming back into the second game. download still is going to increase Porygon's 2 attack, which is definitely not quite what you want in this situation.
Not ideal, especially if you do have to end up attacking with the Porygon 2. That said, you know, if the Porygon 2 does wake up, it's going to be able to do exactly what it wants this turn. I doubt it's going to get knocked out. The Porygon 2... Ooh, I don't know though. That Porygon 2 is going to take a lot of damage from Sacred Sword. And, you know, the Zacian isn't going to get intimidated anymore because it dealt with the Incineroar already. So it's going to be close. That Porygon 2 though, probably not going to get double targeted. I think the Yveltal is going to be able to deal with that Venusaur in the final turn here. Does have to be careful, of course, of not getting there. The Venusaur, yeah, I like that. Smart, just throw out the Max Guard. Ooh, Max Darkness going into there as well. That's a big miss. And time to see how much Sacred Sword does.
Yeah, Porygon 2 is still going to be quite tanky, so it's going to take that Sacred Sword fairly well, but it's still asleep.
Yeah, that's a problem, because now with the G-Max Vine Lash between turns, the Sacred Sword in the following turn is definitely going to get there. And that means this Porygon 2, which we liked as soon as we saw it, the opening pair, we thought that's the one, just doesn't look like it's going to be able to accomplish very much at all. And I think this Zacian's going to be in a good position to try and deal with both Pokemon on the field right now, really. It's a really good position for Zacian. Maybe needs a little bit of help with some speed, which if the Tornadus is available would be good, but I doubt it. Just looking at the 3 that Victor's already revealed, for me, for my money, it's got to be that Kyogre in the back again. And if, you know, Victor can force the Groudon to show early on, then that Kyogre can just come in and run away with the game. So knocking out this Porygon here would be absolutely huge, just for the benefit of getting that in. The Yveltal is still a concern, but, you know, forcing this Groudon in, if that's the last Pokemon on Joe's team, which I'd be very shocked if it wasn't, does mean that, you know, the Kyogre wins that war, essentially. Because you can, on Victor's side, you can just bring Incineroar in now and see what Joe is bringing.
Fourth and final Pokemon for Joe, and yep, here comes the Incineroar from Victor just to scout out. It is that Groudon in the back, and so if it is Kyogre in the back for Victor, this becomes a pretty good game for him where he can just reset the weather. But the Intimidate drop is going to be quite important to be able to keep that Groudon in check. That way the Zacian can stay alive and also cycle out.
I'd say if it's the Groudon, the Kyogre in the back, that is a delightful game for Victor. He doesn't even need to rush this either. He can really take his time and just try and maybe, because that Yveltal is very fast. We can't underestimate that, and you don't want to, you know, bring in your Kyogre and just let it get hit by the Yveltal right away. So maybe spend a couple turns just wearing that down, working on it to try and get some additional damage down so you can pick it off a little easier when things go that way. Yeah, Incineroar fake out though. Ooh, lovely call from Victor heading into the Groudon, but the Protect, yeah, he doesn't quite get it 100% spot on. But, you know, the Yveltal takes damage for free between turns, and without weaving in an Oblivion Wing, that's going to sit down for, you know, this turn or maybe a little bit longer.
Well, even when you look at Oblivion Wing and the rest of the targets for that attack on Victor's team, you're not going to get a whole lot of healing back from that. You know, it's going to be a really tough one, despite the fact that the Yveltal is the fastest thing on the field. But let's see how much this Oblivion Wing is going to do. It's going to go right into the Incineroar, and see, that's very, very little. So whatever type of healing that Yveltal is getting back may not be enough to keep it safe. Zacian can go for a Behemoth Blade now. It is completely wide open to do so, and it goes into the Yveltal. It's enough to get the knockout, and so now it is just Groudon left for Joe. And we still don't know what Victor has in the back. I
would be shocked if it's not the Kyogre. If it's not the Kyogre, we've got a whole new game, and we've got something crazy that we have to deal with. And we are not going to see a different Pokemon at the end of this turn, because the Precipice Blades, even though it hits both, isn't going to get the knockouts thanks to the Sugar Berry. But, you know, this Groudon might not even get to see the last Pokemon. It's so low already. The Zacian may just be able to tidy it up. And the Incineroar, it feels pretty good about it. So Victor not even needing his fourth and final Pokemon. This game has been very nicely adapted to, and I think leaving that Tornadus at home has worked so well in his favor.
Has worked out really well. The Zacian also just going to protect itself. Groudon allowed to fire off another Precipice Blades. This will be plenty knock out that Incineroar. And so we do get to see the 4th and final Pokemon revealed for Victor.
Yeah, Victor just showing it off. But he's going to have the rain, he's going to have complete control of it. There it is. There's the confirmation that he's bought what I would say is the correct choice in this matchup. And he's got himself in the position that the eternal struggle of the Kyogre player is, well, what happens if you don't get the Kyogre in after the Groudon? Well, you get really hurt. But he's managed to avoid that situation here and is about to wrap this one up in Swiss round 12.
Yep, Zacian, though, still going to be the first to move, going for that Behemoth Blade just to pick up the knockout and secure this victory here for Victor. And so a 2-0 scoreline as Victor Medina takes Swiss round number 12.
Kyogre coming in just as a mere spectator at the end of that game. Didn't even get to fire off an attack. The Zacian was able to do it all by